Welcome to the Hospitality Maverick podcast with me, Michael Tingsager. We at Hospitality Mavericks are here to inspire leaders in the hospitality and restaurant industry to create heart-centered and profitable businesses from the inside out. The kind that both employees and customers love and support. In today's podcast, I'm extremely excited to be talking with Lars Kure Juul. Lars is an international leadership and HR advisor, trainer, author, and keynote speaker. He has written the international bestseller Organizational Happiness and are the co-creator of the engagement tool Motivational Landscape. I sat down with Lars to talk about leadership, organizational and individual happiness, and how you can transform organizations through finding purpose, leverage your strengths, and developing compassion. Remember to grab your notebook, lots of nuggets to get down on paper and put into action in this podcast. Enjoy! Welcome to the Hospitality Maverick podcast. I'd taken the plane this morning from London and all the way to the Danish wilderness north from Copenhagen to meet a very, very special guy that will talk about happiness in a second. And he's called Lars Kure Juul, trusted advisor and HR executive. Is that the right way to present you, Lars?
Yeah, that's fine.
And you're so kind to invite me out here to your beautiful place. We're sitting and looking directly into the wilderness. And
Yeah,
there's no bears, if you think that in Denmark. There's no bears. And this is the first time, Lars, there's a Danish person on the podcast.
Okay.
Lars, can you tell a bit about your story and what you've been up to beside you know a lot about leadership and happiness and so on?
Sure. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Very excited about it, and also to talk about something I'm very passionate about. Yeah, so my story, my professional story, started 25 years ago, graduating as a lawyer, working in the beginning of the 90s, working in the IT industry as a corporate lawyer. At that time, in the beginning of the 90s, there was a lot going on, mergers and acquisitions, IT, buying and selling companies and things like that. So that was my first job, working for a British-American company covering the Nordic region. And after maybe 3-4 years into the corporate lawyer, mergers and acquisition avenue, I felt that what really made a difference in terms of when you are merging or acquiring or actually integrating companies, what really made a difference was not really the lawyers, but maybe it was more the looking at the people. Who is it that you would like to work together? How do you retain people? How do you keep top talent? I think also now when I work from an HR organization development perspective, not many organizations are good at integrating companies. Not many mergers and acquisitions are results in a well-integrated entity. So at that time I was more into that, and then I spent some time at Harvard and INSEAD and trying to learn the professionalism of being a people guy or an HR guy or having a corporate role within HR. So the last almost 25 years I've been in corporate roles, having teams of HR. Everything I've done has kind of been within HR, organization development, leadership, being in corporate roles or as a consultant. Now I have my own consulting company in Copenhagen, working out of Copenhagen with a wide range of global international organizations. I try to spend half of my time in Copenhagen. That's where my home and family is. But other than that, I have a very international perspective around HR, organization development, leadership.
Yeah, and you're often in Costa Rica. If you follow him on LinkedIn or other social channels, you will see he's often in a very nice place in South America.
That's right. I have a connection with UPeace, which is a UN-mandated peace university in Costa Rica. A beautiful place. If you have a chance to go there, you should. Twice a year, or maybe even more, I go to Costa Rica. I teach a course at the university, and I also have some clients there, corporate clients. So I teach a course together with partners at the university called Positive Leadership.
Yeah, well, I think we will touch on that in a moment. And you're an author as well.
Oh, yeah.
You have brought your books here today. I can see you're flashing them.
Yeah, I'm flashing them wherever I can. We published this one in November.
Organizational Happiness, I'm sitting with here. The Happiness Sweet Spot and your Motivational Landscape.
That's right. It's a book I had in me for years, I think. Mm-hmm. And it was not until or maybe in the middle of last year, I decided to have to do something about it. I published in late November. I didn't publish it to be a famous author. I published it because I thought there was something I want to share a message about organizational happiness. That's really my desire and my purpose on this one. And I tried to, the academic in me wanted to present academic theories and cases and things like that, but I ended up cutting most of that out because I think there is a need for a more how-to from an organization perspective. How do you work with organizational happiness? And the book was so well received. At the beginning of December, I received an email from someone and I saw it was number 1 in Japan or something. That was the first time I realized there was really a pull on the message. You're always a little vulnerable when you send out something like that and then say, how is it received in the market? It ended up being number 1 in a lot of geographies.
Amazon bestseller says in front of the book. We'll throw a link in the podcast. So tell us a bit about what the book is about. Like, what is? I guess it's your philosophy. It's your take on how you do it.
The book is trying to give you a recipe for working with organizational happiness by introducing the 3 pillars of organizational happiness. It's purpose, it's strength, and it's compassion. So that's the 3 pillars. It's not a one-size-fits-all model. I don't believe in one-size-fits-all. It's a model that you can work with in an organization, finding your happiness sweet spot, your sweet spot within these 3 areas. Some organizations are very strong on purpose. They have a narrative or the storytelling around them. It's easy. So maybe you don't need to do so much around that. So maybe you're more focused on strength and compassion. But on the back of that, there's also a tool in that book, a platform where you can measure in a simple way on organizational happiness, employee engagement, whatever you call it.
So a measurement platform, a digital platform.
A digital platform that works across platforms where we have developed 10 questions. So you ask 10 questions on a regular basis so you know where are you with this? What's your baseline? When you start working with it, you can follow up, measure, monitor, and follow up on the organizational happiness KPI.
One of the things we both preach is you need to know your purpose. I call it purpose and direction. Because if you don't have that, what do you have then? Because what are you going to hang things on? Why are you doing what you're doing? And Simon Sinek, you also admire Simon Sinek's work. I know it's some of the conversation we had before. He also said starts with why. So why is purpose so important? I guess it always has been important, but why more than ever do organizations need to step up and actually reflect if their purpose muscle, if you can say so, is strong enough or is actually clear enough for not only the leadership team, but for from top to the front line where the real work is done.
Yeah. I think there's a couple of things, and I think it's a little more complex than that, because I think what you're doing there is talking into your organizational purpose. And I think that's very, very important for a lot of reasons, for direction, and like you're saying. From my perspective, on an organization development point of view, one of the very important reasons for having a clear, heartfelt purpose that is more than profit to the shareholders for your organization is to attract talent. Attract top talent and retain talent. And so this storytelling around it, some organizations call it their employer value proposition, but whatever, how you go to the market and how you tell your story, that's what makes you proud of being a part of that organization. And I think there is a mega trend right now. It's the baby boomers are retiring right now. So it's getting more and more difficult to attract talent, or there is a war for talent, as some people call it. Don't like that expression very much.
Or talent crisis. I don't know.
Talent crisis is a good, that's right.
But that's not a good word either. But it's also a lack of.
But at least there is a competition somehow, and I see that when I work with organizations. Right now, I feel what I see, but of course that's not very scientific, but what I see with my organizations, my clients, is that it's more difficult to attract talent. And a part of that is your purpose, your storytelling around that. And for some organizations, it's very easy. For some NGOs, for UN, as I mentioned, it's easy to tell that story. Peace building or whatever. And for some organizations, it's something you have to develop. It's something, a heartfelt purpose you have to develop. And even for some, as I see it right now, that there's some industries where they really struggle to tell that story. It could be tobacco companies, it could be Coca-Cola.
Marmite organizations in principle.
Marmite organizations.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
In my world, that's, either you can have compassion and think that's okay, they're here, or you just think that's the worst organization on the planet. McDonald's is one of those as well.
Yeah, and then you have to build a story. I mean, you cannot live without that story. So you even, whatever your product, your organization, your culture is, you have to build that story. And then I think you and I and people who are managers or consultants or advising organizations, sometimes I think we take it a little too far, a little too high level, the purpose thing, because then it's just something you put into the annual reporting or whatever.
Strategy documents.
It's words, but it's not really something that you act on. And I think if you look at a global workforce, I would say that 80% of the global workforce, they are in a job because they need to support their family and pay for education for their children and things like that. On the purpose side, I think there's a duality. There is, as an organization, you need to have one, a strong one that speaks to the persons you want to attract, or the employees or the potential employees. But also that you need to accept that not everybody has that purpose, but it just needs to resonate with the people in your organization. Your purpose needs to resonate with the employees' purpose. Maybe they have a different personal purpose, and that, I think also Simon Sinek, as you said, works with that, the personal why. Why am I here? What is that?
Yeah. Can I hang it up on what I'm joining?
Yeah, and sometimes we're a little too competent, I think, in talking about purpose, because for many people, they go to work because they need food on the table. And on top of that, it's nice if they can be proud about what it is that we're doing in the organization, because that's why they will be in that organization for a long time, I think.
I think it's very interesting you said, because one of our programs as well, focusing as well, the first step is to define and clarify the purpose, because all have it. At some point, a company started often because there was a founder. And I know there will be founders that put out just to do profit, but most founders actually start out with they want to change something in the world. It'd be a small thing, but it's something that can impact on local community or the environment and so on. And it doesn't have to be to save the planet always. It can just be, want to create jobs locally, safe job locally in a remote area or something like that. And it could be a strong purpose for my local business, like Danfoss. It's a very strong local community in southern Denmark. I've been part of that organization. You can feel there's a strong commitment to the local economy. Sometimes it becomes a bit like a high-flying word as well, like saving the world. It doesn't have to be. It can be other things. It can be small things, as you said. And I think you're right. The basics still have to be in place, because people have to pay the bills, keep the light on in the house, as I call it. And I think that's, again, the basic has to work, and then you can start looking into purpose and so on afterwards. So purpose, making that much more tangible and making it much more actionable, you say. That's part of the book. And then you said compassion.
The compassion part is, when we talk about organizational happiness and compassion, it's words that in some boardrooms, it's an alien concept, or that we think that it doesn't have a place in the workplace. I think that's changing right now. It's shifting. I think a lot of organizations, a lot of leaders are looking into organizational happiness. And the same goes with compassion as actually one of the three pillars. I think compassion in this concept is defined as an interest in the difficulties of other people and a burning desire to do something about it. That's leadership, in my opinion. Of course, it's empathy. Some people will say it's empathy, but it's not just that, because empathy is very often a passive thing. But it's a burning desire to do something about it.
There's action behind.
There's action behind it. And it's not just action, it's a desire to do it, right? I don't think you can have leadership without compassion. And I think when we do programs on compassion, it's very much about seeing individuals as they are, not just as a human resource. It's a seeing people as individuals, as a father, as a husband, or as a wife, or as whoever they are, and understand what makes them tick. How can I best make them succeed in their job? And it requires, from a manager point of view or leader point of view, it requires a lot of ability to present and have attention.
That's difficult things in this world, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah.
It's getting more and more difficult, I think, to be present because we have all these devices that kind of takes attention. And we have also, in many organizations, there are cultures that it's okay for you and I to have a conversation and I can pick up the phone, which is it completely disrupts. Maybe that's not the good word, but it makes the connection that we had breaks, and we have to establish it again.
Yeah.
So there's a cultural thing, I think, and then there's all the devices that we have. We have a watch that can see my text messages while we're talking. I can, and it kind of takes away my attention and presence, right? So that's a big part, I think, of compassion or being compassionate. And what we emphasize in programs when we do leadership training, we have a program called Organizational Happiness for Leaders. And on the compassion part, we are working on how do you cultivate a culture of compassion, which is a practice thing. I mean, you need to practice simple things.
I guess it's like a muscle as well. Compassion.
Yeah.
It's not like it's not, you're not say you can either have it or not, but everybody has compassion. We're born with it to make people feel safe. As Simon Sinek says, well, we're born with that ability, but we sometimes forget that in the world we live in, that actually there's more than us and our screen, and we actually need to train that muscle. Maybe we're actually losing an ability we were actually grown up with that we actually had.
Yeah. Well, I agree with that. I think that's a good observation, and I don't know if we lost it or we get too busy in our own head or mind, but I would say compassion very often comes from a spiritual place. So that's the conversation we have. But in this, of course, we can have that conversation, but not many organizations really can participate in that spiritual conversation.
No.
But I think if we talk about compassion and leadership as interconnected, being a compassionate leader is actually very, very effective.
Yeah.
If you want to motivate and move organizations, compassion is a very, very effective tool. So coming from that side, do you want to be an effective leader? Most leaders would say yes to that. How can I do that? And very often we then see ourselves as, okay, we need to be tough to be effective. But
we need some time management skills. And
I need to
faster, better,
tell you
quicker.
what to do and go and do it. And if you're not doing it, we have a performance management system, and we have all these things we build around being tough managers, maybe. But actually, I think that research also says that if you want to motivate, move people, change behavior, the soft part, the compassion part is a lot more effective than the tough part. Yeah. Which is a little mind-boggling, but it's like...
Is compassion also saying that I made a mistake as a leader? Is that part of it as well, compassion? Besides that you care for the people, also that you are open and honest when you make mistake?
Yeah.
Because I think trust comes in here as well.
Yeah, it's compassion, and compassion is also a building block for trust. And again, trust is a building block for performance and teamwork, right?
Yeah.
So I think there is a connection there. And I think the part of, as a manager, being a person that doesn't know everything, but have a real interest in that you, as a part of my team, succeed. How can I best help you succeed?
Yeah.
And if you're doing that, it's high performance. It's a winning strategy for our organization, if you look at it that way. And I think what you also pointed, or what I thought about when you said that, was the thing about not knowing all. It's also from a leader perspective, it's showing a little bit of vulnerability, right? And I think that if you show that creates a loyalty and a trust at the other end.
Some of the most impactful bosses I have myself, sometimes they said to me, I don't know, Michael, but I will find out.
Yeah.
Or I will help you in the right direction, or find somebody that can help you. And first time you think, when you were younger, he should know that, or she should know that answer.
Yeah.
But actually, that's quite the most powerful thing you can do. In a way, you buy yourself time, and you buy yourself respect and trust.
Yeah.
By giving yourself that. And then again, it becomes like a skill they use. Because we talked on the way up here in the car about leadership skills.
Yeah.
There's all these, models, the grow models, there's feedback models, there is performance management models, etc., and different HR models about how to manage teams and organizations. But that's not what it's about. It's this, glue, the compassion. There's your approach and how you take these models and find your own way to use them. Because they're great models, but they're not better than the way you use them and how often you train in using them in the right way, with the right intention. I think Dalai Lama says the right view and the right action or something like that. You have to have the right view in life and the right action. And you have to evaluate every decision you make on that. Did you have the right view? Was that the best for you and the world around you? And did you take the right action from the insights you got? Do you have some knowledge you should action on, or should you not action on it as well? You need to make those reflections all the time. And that's very spiritual, but again, he comes down to compassion as well. He thinks the world has to be more compassion.
And happy.
And happy, yeah, I'd say.
It's all about happiness. But I think that points into when you talk about leadership skills, and we also talked about this on the way up in the car, and we talked about, I mean, we cannot all be Richard Branson or Dalai Lama or Mother Teresa or whatever role models we have. We need to find our own way of being authentic. What's inside me? How can I bring myself into my leadership role? And I think that's the third pillar. Now we had purpose, compassion, and now talking about strength, which is really, I also like the word superpower. What's your superpower? This is about strengths-based leadership. There's a lot of experts around this and books and things. So, but this is really about what's my superpower. I need to know my superpower, and I need to know the superpowers of my team as a leader. And you need to have a way of having those conversations about strengths or superpowers. Because I think very often what happens in an organization is that we have the yearly performance review or whatever it's called, annual appraisal, and we spend most of the time talking about weaknesses that we need to develop. Gaps, room for improvement, or whatever it is we call it. And we spend most of our training budget on weaknesses that if you spend a lot of hours and money on it, you might turn out to be just half good at that. And it's not a winning strategy. It's a losing strategy. The winning strategy is talking about your superpowers and how can I identify my superpowers? How can I tell my organization about the superpowers so they know how they can bring me into play? And how can I bring myself into play for the purpose of the organization? That's a winning strategy, but it sounds easy. But we are all kind of brought up with this agenda for the yearly appraisal or whatever that we talk about weaknesses. I get it because I've been a part of that corporate world, but I see organizations changing that agenda by having different language, talking about superpowers. How do we complement each other? And very often, like I think it was Peter Drucker said it. I think he said the role of a manager is to align the strengths so the weaknesses get irrelevant, right? And I very much subscribe to that. And I think the organizations that succeed in doing that, having different agendas, talking in different ways about strengths and weaknesses, it's very noticeable and it's very effective. I think the results are very clear, I think, when you start talking about superpowers instead of when you look at I said training budgets and things like. I mean, there is a good business case in terms of how you spend your money, but also how that will affect your performance, right? So.
But it's interesting. I think it's about a month ago, a bit longer maybe. We had Dr. John Mervyn on the podcast, and he was talking about the GC index, and it's about Game Changer. They created a psychometrics tool on demand of the market because the market wanted to find these incredible high-performing Richard Branson staff they could hire into the corporate world, and they found out that everybody is actually a game changer. They just get energy from different things. So he talks about this. The game changer is the visionary, to see, the impossible nobody have seen and create that future. Then you have the strategic people that can make sense out of this and make a plan. And then you have the implementer, which is the people that get stuff done. So they take, this is the plan. They implement the plan to get it done. Then you have the polisher that refines the plan and make sure it really works to the nuts and bolts. Then you need the playmakers as well to make everybody glue together and work and build, the alignment. It's not about emotional intelligence. They're just good at making teams working together and bridge those gaps there is in teams. They like to be surrounded by people. And they find out in that work there's no perfect profile. You can't define that. And it was very interesting. He talked a lot about, that thing, where do you actually get your energy from? Find out as your leader where are your blind spots, where you're never going to get energy. Hire people in on those roles and just make sure they can play that role most of the time. You cannot do that 100%. We all need to implement, we all need to polish, but make sure that you most of the time do what actually your profile says that you're getting energy from. And I think that's a very important thing to know as a manager as well, both yourself and your team, as you said.
Yeah, I think that's a very good example. I was just thinking while you were talking, I thought about all organizations, or many organizations have a talent management strategy, right?
Yeah.
And these talent management strategy, this is, I think in my view, or let me say it another way, in some organizations, talent is defined as something that only 5% or 3% has. Yeah. But I think it's a wrong view. I think you need to accept or look at your organizations like everybody has talent. Everybody has a strength or a superpower. We need to find out what it is, and we need to find out how to bring that into play, which is really talent management, right?
Yeah, leadership, isn't it?
Yeah.
I normally say managers create employees, leaders create leaders. Because you need to find out who succeed you. That's your job. And then when you get your work on your 3 circles, or I call it the muscle right now, maybe that's I'm breaking your concept a bit. But then you find your sweet spot, you say. Mm-hmm. When do you know when you have the sweet spot? What's happening in an organization when they hit the sweet spot?
It's depending what your baseline is. Yeah, I think. So you finding your sweet spot is something that you are working with all the time, I think. But the measurement part, I think it's very important, because this organizational happiness, it's not what I would call hippie happy thing. It's not about pool tables or playing soccer at lunchtime. It's not that. This is a real thing around strengths-based leadership, having a strong purpose, and working with leadership and compassion. And I think what happens when you are close to the sweet spot, then you start measuring. If you have a sweet spot score, it goes up, but that also means that the performance goes up. You can see it on the organization, and the business case that you build on this, we have a long list of business cases in it, but it's quite substantial, the business cases you can build, depending on your industry, where you started from and things. But it's business cases like up to 31% in productivity. Productivity is one thing. Profit, customer satisfaction, which is, we all know what that means. Yeah. If you have satisfied customers. The business case around this it's so massive that there's a lot of things that goes up, you could say. And there's a lot of things that goes down, like sick leaves, turnover, things like that. And the business cases around some of these are real business KPIs, like revenue, profit, customer loyalty, satisfaction.
And turnover as well.
Turnover as well. And some of them are very close to HR, I would say also. These are really HR KPIs that you measure on, like retention or... And turnover, burnout, sick leave, things like that. And so the business case is massive around it. And I recommend that when you start working with this, with organizational happiness, you can call it whatever you want. I call it organizational happiness. Some organizations call it employee engagement, which is also, I don't care what you call it, but I think it's organizational happiness. But that you start by establishing a baseline, a real baseline, so you start measuring on it, so you can follow your business case, so you can document your business case. Because very often these initiatives, they take some time. It's not a lot of money. I think very often we talked about training budgets and things. It's sometimes just moving your resources or using your resources in a different way, also your financial resources or your budgets. But then you need to track it to show the results, and you need to keep at it. So I very much recommend to measure and follow your business case, so you build it. And at some point, unless you're working directly with the board, maybe I'm just working with a team that needs to prove it to the CEO, or at some point someone will ask you, so what's going on here? What's happening? What's this happy thing? And then you have your business case, right?
Who is responsible for organizational happiness? Let's just call it that, because engagement, you call it as well, is often put down in HR. But I often say that people don't leave a business; they leave their leaders. So who is responsible for this? There's a lot of conversation going on also when we meet clients. Often the C-suite is not involved in this from the beginning. Some C-suites bring this in, but who is responsible for organizational happiness?
And one example I want to get, I think it was my first position as vice president HR in an IT company, and we asked. I did this exercise of asking, what's the role of HR because we wanted to have a new strategy. And some of the response that we get was from the managers. The role of HR is employee engagement, and things like that. I was totally blown away by that because I don't think it's the role of HR to create or establish employee engagement or even organizational habit. I think it's the role of the leaders, the people who have people responsibility, you could say. But I think some of this is a little bit of a change. I talked about strengths-based leadership. It demands a different way of speaking, conversation. So in some organizations, there's also a structural thing you need to change a little bit. You need to introduce maybe a new process, new tool and things like that. That's an HR exercise, I think. So you need to offer tools, give
structure things.
A structure to the managers so they have a handle. But from there on, it's up to the managers to work on organizational happiness. An example is, I think it's a good, I hope it will be a good example because we just did it 2 weeks ago, but we trained 130 managers from one company. So they want to roll out their organizational happiness. And this is like 130 managers responsible for almost 4,000 employees. And it started as a core group within HR and things. But then they made a roadmap which started with 130 managers, giving them tools to roll out some of this, right? I'm looking forward to see how that goes, and hopefully I can be a part of it.
It sounds like you're doing some serious impact and change. So if we take because there's been a lot of talk about engagement, there's never been put more money in. It's one of the massive focus. Harvard Business School writes a lot about engagement and organizational happiness, as you call it. Well, a lot about this. Has it really moved into the companies? Have the companies actually, because people want actually to? No, they talk about generations. They talk about the younger generation, the millennials, and so on. The ones a different place to work, but I don't think it's different from age. We all want to work in a safe place and a place where we love to come and go home and bring joy when we come home. Have companies, are they still behind from where society is moving in a way, and from how we run and manage businesses?
Yeah, I think so. Of course, some organizations are behind or trying to catch up, or maybe we see it when we have difficulties attracting the talent that we need. Then we find out if you have to implement a strategy and don't have the resources or the talent. But I think the thing around engagement as a concept or employee engagement, I think last year in October, Gallup did a survey. I think it was an American workforce, and they asked, so do you find yourself to be highly engaged? And I think the response was that 34%, which was an 80-year all-time high, something like that. 34% said, yes, I'm an engaged employee. And just that picture, I think we all get it. We get it that if you're a happier, healthier, more motivated employee, there's a lot of performance and success from a business perspective in that. And if you have a number like 34, you can see the potential in there. How do you unlock the rest, which must be 66% probably, if it's the 100 is the total? How do you unlock that? And I just want to touch a little bit on that, because I think many consultants are talking about unlocking potential. Yeah,
it's a very thrown around phrase. Yeah.
And we also talk about transformation, disruption, big change, things like that. And
I don't like those words.
No.
Transformation is a negative word.
Yeah, could be. Yeah. We use these words as trying to drive a change.
Yeah.
And what it does to our organization is that it limits our organization. It's a threat. We get a little bit afraid, so we duck and we don't release the potential we already have there. Yeah. What I think we do with the happiness sweet spot, or the organizational happiness, is that we try to unlock the potential that you already have. The last 66%, when we talk about that, and that's not a frightening story. Nope. It's not. It's a compelling story. It's a story that how can I use my superpowers? Because I know if I use my superpower to achieve something greater for the purpose of the company, there's a happiness in it for me also, right? And how do I cultivate a more compassionate leadership culture in my organization? This is a key or tool to unlock, but without the threat of disrupt and transform or big change or whatever we call it. Because sometimes I think the push that we do with those words, we're not doing the organization a favor. And sometimes we're doing it every 6 months. We have a new disruption or a new transformation. And I think that will just put a lid on how you can unlock potential.
Because people also will perceive words differently. Some would perceive them harder, others would perceive them just another thing happening in a way. I think you're right. Words is one of the most powerful things you have as a leader and as a human being, where you really can change people, both positive and negative. Positive leadership you do as well. Would you want to touch quite shortly on what is positive leadership? There's a bit of a rumbling in the background. That's because we are in the wilderness and there's a thunder coming, I think. And you can hear a bit of rain in the background. So yeah.
We are here out in the... this place is called Kure Juul.
Yeah. Organizational Happiness HQ. I forgot to say that in the beginning.
Yeah, let me talk about I wanted to say that this place is called Kure Juul. It's taking from the notion in Costa Rica every time when you walk around Costa Rica, you say Pura Vida, which is pure life, and it's like hi, or it's a greeting thing. So that's where it comes from, this one.
And
so
Kure is the family middle name.
That's my family name. So, that's why we call it.
Yeah, that's quite cool.
And positive leadership, I think a little bit of a background on that. I think positive leadership and positive psychology.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah. We are here in the wilderness.
Which has been a thing for the last 20 years, maybe. Just in broad terms. I think one of my inspirations on positive psychology is Dr. Martin Seligman. He talks not about happiness, he talks about flourishing, which is, I think it's the same thing, and his PERMA model. So that model is also linked to the organization concept here. Positive leadership is a thing, but it's also a course that we're running a couple of times a year in Costa Rica at UPeace, which is actually built on the organizational happiness concept and give potential leaders or leaders a tool case to take the positive leadership and bring them into their leadership discipline. I think for me, it's not just about being positive, which is a nice thing. I mean, happiness and positive, and it's like everybody gets it. But for me, in an organization development and leadership perspective, it's about how can you best move your organization in the right direction? How can you be an effective leader? And I believe positive leadership and the things we talked about earlier that's the most effective leadership style you can have, and I think there's a lot of cases to prove that. And
I guess it comes down to way you view things, the energy you put behind it, and then also how you action on them. Leadership really comes to life when you action on it, I normally say to people. So that's how you do things. It's like, do you spend a difficult conversation? Do you actually take your time really to prepare and really do that conversation in the right way, or if you don't do it in the right way, are you following up to make sure it gets right? Because sometimes you get things wrong in difficult conversation. People, because leadership is about difficult conversation, but often what I've seen sometimes is leader rush to it because they are people problems, they call them. And we just need to get on with business. So we just need to have this conversation quick, and then I can get on with my to-do list. But actually, if you just spend a bit more time with that conversation and prep a bit more, that conversation you can actually turn it to a positive sometimes, because you actually, you get build a relationship, because it's going to be vulnerable conversation. If you're ready for that.
Yeah, I agree.
Where did you get inspired from? We just talked about Simon Sinek, we already touched on, but who's your heroes in all this and took you on this journey? You mentioned a couple already, but is there other people in the world that inspire you and to do the things you do? Because I guess it's not always easy to talk about organizational happiness.
I think some of the work done around purpose and why, Simon Sinek mentioned that. I think he's brilliant. It's the best there is. I mean, many of us kind of lean on that when you do a thing. I think on the positive leadership side, I think the groundwork that Dr. Martin Seligman has done is very, very good and very inspiring. Taking something that is quite complex and making it actionable, like I'm trying to do with the Organizational Happiness book here also. I think on the compassion side, without being too competent and spiritual about it, I think Dalai Lama is someone that always has that humorous touch of being compassionate, and also the pursuit of happiness, also on a personal level and things. So that's someone I of course look up to, but it's also inspired by. There's probably someone else, I should say. My wife.
That sounds quite reasonable. In the end of the podcast, we always ask the guest to give an advice to leaders out there, and what would your advice be? I think it's a very good idea to give leaders advice, because that's what you do normally. What would your one advice be to leaders out there, no matter what level they're on, if they want to become a more effective leader? What should they ask themselves, or what should they go and do?
Pay attention and be present.
Very good advice. So listen.
It's probably more than that, but you can interpret how you want, but it's like that. Paying attention and be present, it's a very, very difficult thing. And I think if you're able to be present with one person just for 2 minutes, and not very many persons are on the receiving end of 2 minutes of presence with their boss. But if you experience it, and if you can do it as a manager, and this is something you can train, if you can do it as a man, you can move mountains. So that, I think that would be a short advice on...
Yeah, also a very, very relevant one in the time age we live in. If you want to know more about organizational happiness and Larss, where do I go and find you? Where can I find you? You can buy the book on Amazon, of course.
You can buy the book on Amazon if you want. I'm on LinkedIn, happy to connect. There's a lot of things happening on LinkedIn right now. I think a lot of good conversations going on. I like that very much. There is a website called organisationalhappiness.com. There's the happiness-sweetspot.com. And on the measurement side, something that we're trying to do more about right now, the motivationallandscape.com. Yeah. That's a place where you can start measuring, and that's a tool that we kind of put a lot of work into, and now we're offering it. Motivationallandscape.com is a good place to start. That links to all the other places, and I think it also links to my LinkedIn.
We'll put some stuff in the podcast, and then you can of course find him here on the podcast as well. Larss, thank you very much for inviting me out here in the Danish wilderness, and we had a bit of thunder, no bears yet. They haven't come down from Sweden, and talked about something I'm personally very passionate about as well, and try to live every day as well, which is hard, but it has to be done. We have to make a better place than we received it in. Hopefully I will come across you again, and you will be on the podcast in a couple of years, and you have some amazing stories to tell then, as you have transformed more companies. Seems like you are starting on with 130 managers. There's something big coming.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for interesting and good conversation. I like that very much, to talk about organizational happiness. It's definitely an inspiring conversation.
That's all we had time for today. Thank you, Larss, for sharing your thoughts and approaches on how to build organizational and individual happiness through defining a clear purpose, finding your strengths, and being compassionate. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please give us a like, review, share, or let us know what you think. Thanks to Let's Talk Video Production for your ongoing assistance. Tune in next time for another industry interview, and in the meantime, find out more about us and sign up to our newsletter at hospitalitymavericks.com. Thanks for listening, and be Maverick.